Be ready. Start. In this connection, it is, however, necessary to bear in mind that the past conduct or antecedent history of the person on which the authority purports to act should ordinarily be proximate to point of time and should have a rational connection with the conclusion that the detention of the person is necessary. It would, for instance, be irrational to take into account the conduct of the person which took place 10 years before the date of his detention and say that even though after the said incident took place, nothing is known against the person indicating his tendency to act in a prejudicial manner. Even so, on the strength of the said incident, which is 10 years old, the authority is satisfied that his detention is necessary. In other words, where an authority is acting bona fide and considering the question as to whether a person should be detained, he would naturally expect that evidence on which the said conclusion is ultimately going to rest must be evidence of his past conduct or antecedent history, which reasonably and rationally justifies the conclusion that if the said person is not detained, he may indulge in prejudicial activities. We ought to add that it is both inexpedient and undesirable to lay down any inflexible test. The government is aware that the farmers have to face the natural calamities of flood and drought every year. Relief is provided by the government at the time of flood, but lakhs of acres of agricultural land is rendered unfit for cultivation due to floods. There is no doubt that agricultural yield increases following the flood, but the farmers have to face heavy losses prior to it. Therefore, arrangements should be made to check the recurring feature of floods in the flood prone areas. The calamities like flood and drought can only be prevented by formulating programs of permanent nature. In our country, agriculture mostly depends on weather conditions. If the weather conditions remain favorable, the crops are good, but in the event of excess or deficient rainfall, or if the crop is hit by hailstorm, huge damage is caused, and in that case, we curse the nature and say that everything has been destroyed due to bad weather. Therefore, the government must think in terms of finding preventive measures to protect agriculture from the havoc of natural calamities. The government has introduced crop insurance scheme for the farmers, but its benefits do not reach the farmers.